After 99 lives as the wicked villainess, she finally reached her breaking point. The author controlled their destinies with a single word, forcing them into mindless submission. Extras existed only to elevate the heroes. This time, she'll be a kind villainess instead. Her mission? Taming her monster father to rewrite her own tragic death sentence. This hated girl was Violetta, and once again, she stood at death's freezing doorstep. It was her 99th execution. She was innocent, yet the script demanded her blood. All because of her father's sins. Being the villain's daughter was a total nightmare. She glared at the man before her, the one destined to end her life. They both had tragic pasts, but he became king simply because he was the protagonist. He was the world's beloved ruler, a perfect puppet for the author's grand design. The king offered a final mercy: kneel, beg, and die quickly by poison. A gift to avoid a painful slaughter. But for Violetta, death was inevitable anyway. She told him to get it over with. Enraged, the king swung his heavy blade. As the steel descended, Violetta prayed this endless cycle would finally shatter. She woke in the familiar soul void. In this world, every life was a fabrication. The author created everyone, strictly dividing them into main leads and disposable extras. The leads possessed free will, while the side characters were merely mindless puppets. They had to follow the script perfectly. Any deviation was strictly forbidden by the system. Violetta was a professional at playing the supporting role of the doomed daughter, dying 99 times as the villain's child had pushed her to the brink of insanity. Each time she entered a book, her memories vanished, forcing her to play her part. She was a hollow marionette, but that 99th life, it was pure psychological torture. Her father was a fanatic, obsessed with her mother, leaving no room for Violetta. He never looked at her. If only he had been a doting, overprotective father, perhaps her ending wouldn't be so grim. But villainesses don't get happy endings here. The author only showed compassion to the heroes. The rest were just fuel. Just as despair took hold, a strange, blinding light enveloped her entire soul. Why was the 100th life starting so soon? She prayed for an escape from misery. Violetta opened her eyes to the sound of familiar, toxic insults. She was stunned. She wasn't a baby this time. Before her stood a maid, screaming curses. Instantly, she whispered the name Adriana. In response, a sharp slap, fueled by malice, hit her. "How dare you speak my name?" Adriana hissed. Suddenly, reality came crashing down. This was Adriana, the sadistic headmaid who had made her past lives a living hell. Why was she back here? Fate was playing a cruel, twisted joke on her. The mansion, her jet black hair, it was all too familiar. Had she actually regressed? Had the author finally taken pity on her, granting her one last chance at life? This was the moment her mother fled her father, seeking refuge with a corrupt viscount. It was a time of peak abuse. Suddenly, that bastard viscount barged into the room. Hearing the commotion, he arrived ready to lock her away in the dark forever. Knowing her father would eventually arrive, Violetta stood tall with newfound courage. She screamed at the viscount, "Do you know who my father is? Unhand me, you peasant!" But her threats fell on deaf ears. To the viscount, she was just trash. Her father didn't even know she existed. Coldly, he threw Violetta back toward Adriana. He ordered her locked in the warehouse. Violetta froze, realizing the plot was shifting dangerously. According to the script, the warehouse was where her mother died. She found her mother's cold body and broke down. Why now? She was too late to save her. In every life, she was his only light, yet he still abandoned her to the cold. Suddenly, a faint rustle echoed behind Violet. She whipped around, eyes wide with suspicion. A blonde boy stood there. Since the protagonist killed her before, blondes were her ultimate trigger. Panic surged. Could this kid be the male lead? He was the exact right age. But logically, the protagonist shouldn't even be here yet. Was the timeline shifting? Needing answers, Violet boldly reached out and swept his bangs aside to see his face. Dark eyes met hers. She exhaled in relief. The real protagonist was supposed to be golden-haired. She apologized for being rude, but then she realized something absolutely game-changing. According to the plot, she shouldn't be able to act like this. The restrictions were gone. To test it, she chatted with the boy, and shockingly, she could say anything she wanted. This newfound freedom was hype, but the boy's behavior started getting weirdly suspicious. He huddled in the shadows like a ghost. Just as she stepped closer to investigate, his stomach roared with hunger. Realizing he was starving, she pulled out her prized croissant. She offered the snack like a peace treaty, but he stubbornly refused. Her patience snapped. She was trying to be a nice villainess, but he wasn't cooperating. Time for force. Violet lunged, stuffing the pastry into his mouth. "Oops, my hand totally slipped. Eat up." After that chaotic feeding, the boy finally accepted the food, and the ice between them broke. His name was Adriel. After bonding for a bit, exhaustion hit, and they both drifted off. When Violet woke up, Adriel had vanished. Had he really pulled off a solo escape? Before she could process his disappearance, her world literally came crashing down. The wall behind her disintegrated in a massive explosion. Through the dust, a figure appeared. A man who looked just like her stormed in, clutching her mother's limp body. Dad arrived. The demon duke had hunted for his wife across the empire, desperate to find her. But he was too late. Seeing her cold, lifeless body shattered what was left of his soul. He ignored his own daughter, consumed by a dark obsession to resurrect his dead wife. He didn't realize this singular madness would eventually lead their entire family to ruin. Having been reborn, Violet knew this tragic plot by heart. It was history repeating itself. Seeing her demon father again filled her with sorrow, but things were about to get violent. Blinded by grief, the Duke didn't ask questions. He nearly choked Violet to death with magic. He was too crazed to see the resemblance. To anyone else, their connection was blindingly obvious. Could a 5-year-old really be a murderer? Luckily, the Knight Captain actually had a brain. He recognized her immediately. Lord Duke, stop. Look at her face for a second. She has your hair and eyes. Plus, she's calling the Duchess Mom. The atmosphere turned awkward. The Duke finally snapped out of his trance and ordered the men to take Violet along. A paternity test was mandatory. First, they marched straight to where the Viscount was hiding. The Viscount started shaking the moment he saw the Duke. This is all a mistake. He claimed the Duchess looked like a commoner, but Violet wasn't buying his trash lies. She rolled her eyes so hard. This guy was the definition of delusional. He had clearly accepted the Black Panther brooch, the ultimate symbol of the Duke's household. He was lying through his teeth, but the Duke wasn't having it. He grabbed the traitor's hair. The Duke's search was public knowledge. You didn't know? Seeing the Viscount keep lying, Violet jumped in to expose him. He's lying. He hit us because he hates our family. He treated me like a slave and locked us in a dark warehouse while Mom suffered. Looking at Violet's tattered rags, the Duke's rage peaked. He made a shocking decision. He looked at his 5-year-old daughter and told her to decide the Viscount's punishment. Proving his noble blood felt like a winning lottery ticket to the desperate Viscount. Little did he know, Violetta was a straight-up menace, far colder than the Duke himself. Let's start with your pinky, Viscount. After all, this family isn't called demons for nothing. The terrified Viscount scrambled to grab her hem. Sobbing for a shred of mercy, Violetta's gaze remained ice-cold. Crying now? Save your breath, it's far too late for that. I'll take it slow, starting with your fingers and toes. Ending you instantly would be a bore. The captain stood nearby, shivering as he watched a 5-year-old drop such ruthless lines. She was a true Duke's daughter, vicious, fearless, and absolutely savage, even at her age. Her father looked low-key impressed, noting how much her sharp eyes mirrored his own. In a weird twist, they spared the Viscount mostly because the Duke actually fainted from shock. Soon, they found Adriel unconscious in the warehouse. Seeing him like that made Violetta spiral. She clutched her father's sleeve, desperately begging him to let Adriel live. But Dad just smirked. Who said anything about execution? I'm not a monster. He ordered Adriel be taken to the estate for medical treatment immediately. Business finished. On the ride home, the mansion was buzzing. The servants were gossiping about the mysterious daughter. Amidst the chaos, Lucia was handpicked by the head maid to be Violetta's personal attendant. When the carriage arrived, the Duke stepped out carrying the mother, with Violetta following silently. Watching the tiny girl, Lucia felt a massive wave of pity wash over her. She vowed right then to protect Violetta at all costs. But that bright smile? It made Violetta cringe. In her past life, she'd lived to make Lucia's existence a living nightmare. Back then, she'd crushed Lucia's spirit entirely. Remembering her cruelty felt like a punch to the gut. After a quick cleanup, Lucia escorted the young lady to a lavish lunch. Seeing the chef's desperate face, Violetta felt another heavy wave of guilt hit her. In her previous life, she'd constantly trash his hard work just to be petty and cruel. Now, the servants' warm, adoring gazes were honestly starting to feel a bit overwhelming. She was used to being loathed, so this sudden fan club vibe was a total system shock. Lucia even pledged to stay by her side forever. It was a sweet burden she wasn't ready for. Even crazier was how Lucia viewed her father. Apparently, he was seen as a tragic romantic hero. His years of searching for his wife had turned him into the ultimate devoted husband legend. Lucia even hoped Violetta would find a man just like him. Violetta could only sweat drop. She forced a smile, knowing her luck wasn't that great, but Lucia just kept hyping the family. The maid went on and on about how amazing the Duke's household actually was. Honestly, Lucia had been terrified of this job. She'd heard horror stories about noble houses. You know, the ones where maids disappear in the middle of the night and never return. But the Duke's estate was a total plot twist. It was basically a dream workplace. It was a strict 9-to-5 with gourmet meals and 0 overtime. Talk about a flex. They even had a luxury break room and actual long-term vacations for everyone. For a commoner, this place was literally a worker's paradise on Earth. Hearing this, Violetta felt a pang of shame. Lucia seemed so genuinely happy now. The servants loved it because the Duke was never home. But in the original timeline, Violetta had basically treated Lucia like an absolute slave from the moment she arrived. If she hadn't broken free from her villainous script, Lucia would be suffering right now. Oblivious to the dark past, Lucia asked if she didn't think her family was just incredible. Wow, you're right, Violetta replied vaguely. It's way different than the rumors I heard. She breathed a sigh of relief, thankful she could finally change the fate of those around her. Rumors say our house shreds disobedient servants to pieces. Lucia was livid. Young lady, ignore those gossiping fools. The Valeria name stands at the peak, one of the Great Four. Heroes of the Empire. Each heir wields a unique god-tier magic. You should be proud, milady. Your bloodline is absolute. Seeing Lucia's loyalty, Violetta's heart grew heavy. She wasn't wrong. If father wasn't consumed by the madness of reviving mother, our downfall wouldn't be so certain. But could I truly change him? His obsession had already crossed the point of no return. Duke Beltran, a longtime rival, smelled blood in the water. He craved the Valeria family's divine magic for himself. Hearing about the lack of a funeral and the preserved corpse, a sinister scheme formed. He'd use the dead to destroy the living. Meanwhile, Duke Cassian was drowning his sorrows in booze again. The butler silently served water, announcing Beltran's arrival. Even he shuddered at the Duchess's cold form on the bed. How much longer, my lord? She needs to rest. Cassian snapped. She stays where she belongs, at my side. But remembering her love for nature, he moved her to the garden. Beltran was stunned. How did Cassian look so sharp after drinking? He played the concerned friend. I heard the tragic news. The funeral? The dead stay dead, Cassian. Those words triggered a storm. I said no funeral. Are you here to mock my grief? Cassian's mana flared. One more word and your wife will be a widow. Beltran panicked. Wait, I'm here to help you bring her back. Tell me. Would you sacrifice everything to save her? Without a second's hesitation, Cassian vowed, I'd burn in hell for her. The trap was set. Beltran whispered of a legendary dark mage. The price? Living sacrifices. A path paved in blood. Desperation is a dangerous drug. Cassian was now fully hooked. He vanished for days, hunting for forbidden miracles. Back at the estate, the maids tried to cheer Violetta with puppets. After countless lifetimes, these toys felt like child's play. Yet, she smiled, she needed these maids for her grand escape. Changing her father was a lost cause. She'd escaped this hell for a free life. He began hunting for ways to revive her with insane obsession. He didn't return home for days, leaving Violetta with the servants. The maids enthusiastically performed doll plays to keep her entertained. But after so many lives, Violetta was bored of such things. Still, seeing their hopeful faces, she played along with the act. She knew she'd need their help for her master plan. Changing her father was a lost cause. She'd escape this hell for a free life. But freedom requires some serious cash. This hush-hush money transfer had to happen now. To pull it off, I desperately needed the maid's help. Right then, Lucia served the cream cake she'd requested, but Violetta's subconscious slipped, blurting out a craving for cherry pie. She froze instantly. Those toxic habits from her past life were starting to crawl back to the surface. In her previous timeline, her bratty whims had driven poor Lucia to the absolute brink of insanity. If she were Lucia, she'd have used poison by now. Shook, she grabbed the cake and showered Lucia with gratitude. She had to be more careful. Little did Violetta know, the maids in this life actually adored her even more. This time was different. Seeing her gloomy mood today, the staff immediately spiraled into a deep, worried reflection. They panicked, thinking Violetta felt suffocated by them hovering around her 24/7. So, they hatched a space mission, leaving her alone so she could finally catch a break and relax. Their plan backfired spectacularly. Instead of peace, an overwhelming, unprecedented wave of loneliness crashed over Violetta. Watching every servant avoid her like the plague for days, Violetta finally broke down in bitter tears. She figured no one would ever comfort a wicked villainess, so she slapped her own cheeks to snap out of it. She tried to swallow her sobs, but suddenly Lucia spawned out of nowhere and snatched her hands away. My lady, no matter how much it hurts, you mustn't resort to self-harm. In a flash, a massive squad of servants swarmed the room, their faces etched with pure devastation for Violetta. Violetta was left totally stunned until Lucia declared that their solitude operation was officially and permanently cancelled. The realization finally clicked. All that cold distance over the past few days had been a calculated move. Before she could even process the drama, the family doctor was already rushing through the door. After a quick pinch of Violetta's rosy cheeks, the doctor casually concluded that there was zero cause for alarm. This sent Lucia into a frenzy, demanding a full body scan and a much more thorough medical investigation. It took repeated, high-level pinky swears from the doctor before the staff finally believed Violetta was out of danger. Violetta was shook. A few simple cheek slaps made the entire household drop their tools just to check on her. Being showered with this much sudden affection made her heart race and her face flush with pure emotion. Lucia caught the blush immediately and tried to drag the poor doctor back for a second round of exams. To save the exhausted medic, Violetta had no choice but to spill the tea about her feelings. She didn't expect a sob fest. The maids were devastated, blaming themselves for not noticing her crushing loneliness sooner. To make it up to her, Lucia whipped out a black cat plushie and presented it like a sacred treasure. Seeing the toy, guilt stabbed at Violetta. In her past life, she had ruthlessly shredded this exact same doll. She made a silent, solemn vow. In this timeline, she would protect this little kitty with her life. Once the room cleared out, Violetta drifted into a deep sleep, clutching the plushie like a lifeline. But in the dead of night, a sharp tapping sound against the window glass jolted her wide awake. Fearing an assassin had finally come for her, she crept toward the window, ready for a life-or-death confrontation. Instead, she found a chunky little bird that started talking, immediately exposing her secret identity as a reincarnator. Violetta stared, wondering if this was the legendary cheat helper usually gifted to people who return from the dead. Before she could interrogate the burb, Lucia's hand snatched the round creature out of the air like a pro. It turned out Lucia was pulling an all-nighter, guarding Violetta's room from the shadows like a literal secret agent. Seeing the chunky bird about to be yeeted into the abyss, Violetta's internal alarms went off at full blast. She scrambled for an excuse, claiming the bird was her newest bestie, just like the black cat doll. She lied through her teeth, insisting she'd invited the bird for a top-secret, late-night squad meeting. Lucia's heart shattered with guilt. She literally punched the wall, devastated she hadn't known about the secret meeting. She felt a holy duty to guard the Duchess's innocence, but she low-key wanted an invite to the party too. Lucia immediately proposed a future mask-themed gala where everyone would wear animal faces to match Violetta's new friends. Only after securing Violetta's royal approval did she finally retreat, looking like she'd just won the lottery. The moment Lucia vanished, the chunky bird started roasting Violetta, whining so much she started getting an actual headache. To shut him up, Violetta offered her precious strawberry cake. The bird acted too cool for it at first, then started feasting. That chonky little bird finally chilled out after devouring the cake. He then revealed a divine scroll meant for Violetta. Turns out, this reincarnation was a heavenly gift. The goddess hoped she'd seize this second chance to live her best life. Step 1. Fixing her icy relationship with Dad. While Violetta reeled from the revelation, her round-feathered friend vanished into thin air. Heartbreak hit her hard. If she couldn't even see him, how was she supposed to change him? Lucia dragged her out of bed at dawn, dressing her in high-class regalia. See, yesterday's doctor went rogue during the checkup, secretly swiping a blood sample for a DNA test. The verdict was in. She's pure-blooded royalty. Now, Dad was returning to verify the truth. Lucia went all out on her hair and outfit, but Violetta knew it was a total waste. In her past life, she never even shared a meal with him. There were chances back then, but eventually, he'd always ditch her with some lame excuse. Still, the staff were convinced he'd show up, especially the blue-haired man looming before her, the one and only Octavio. He's Dad's right-hand man and the mastermind behind the Duke's massive fortune. Seizing the moment, Violetta asked when her allowance would finally start hitting her account. Hearing that her paydays began next month, she was absolutely over the moon. The Valeria family's pocket money was no joke. It was a literal mountain of cash. 3 months of saving meant her own house. Her escape plan was officially in motion. Violetta flashed a creepy grin, and Octavio froze. That smile was a carbon copy of her father's. Talk about powerful genetics! Hearing his praise, Violetta felt a wave of pure embarrassment wash over her. But the vibe turned weird when he kept calling her kiddo. She was low-key offended by that. Octavio just shrugged, claiming she'd only earn a name reveal once she finally grew up. Fuming, she decided to play that game too. From now on, she'd call him darling just to be petty. He countered by saying kid and darling were a perfect match. That ridiculous logic left her speechless. Honestly, everyone serving her villainous father was a total weirdo. Suddenly, a messenger rushed in, shoving an urgent letter into Octavio's hand. After skimming it, he told her to eat without waiting. It didn't take a genius to know Dad was a no-show. It was the same depressing cycle from her previous life all over again. Reforming her father was mission impossible, but she never expected a massive plot twist to hit right after her nap. Waking up, she called out for Lucia like usual. But Lucia was gone. The entire mansion had fallen eerily silent, not a single servant in sight. After wandering the halls, she finally spotted Lucia, whose face was pale with sheer anxiety. Lucia panicked the moment they locked eyes, desperately trying to usher her back to bed. But with Violetta's many past life experiences, she knew something was definitely up. This wasn't simple. Just then, she overheard Octavio's voice giving a report to her father. Without a second thought, she sprinted toward the source of the noise. Terrified servants tried to block her path, but her eyes were locked on a looming dark figure. She threw her arms around him, but as her eyes slowly opened, she noticed something horrifying. Her clothes were suddenly drenched in fresh, crimson blood. And there was Dad, staring her down like a demon clawing its way out of hell. Shaken by his terrifying presence, she couldn't help but stumble back in fear. Seeing her flinch, Dad spun around and growled at her to get lost. But his voice, It was raspier than usual, making Violetta realize something was terribly wrong. Then, she saw it. Dad's eyes were bloodshot and swollen. Had he actually been crying? In her previous life, she only knew him as a madman, obsessed with bringing Mom back, but she never. I finally realized the depth of Dad's hollow, isolated existence. Losing his one true soulmate had left him completely shattered. He only craved her return, yet he stained his hands with sin. Branded a villain by the world, my heart finally ached for him. I'll rewrite his fate this time. I rushed to block his exit. Mom always said, eat on time, skip a meal, and she'll worry. At the mention of her name, a flicker of life sparked in his eyes. He scooped Violetta up and barked orders for a massive feast. Unexpectedly, Violetta shared her first meal with him across 2 lifetimes. She munched dramatically, chirping, "Mom loves a healthy appetite." The bait worked perfectly, though Dad stared at the bread like a chore. He stalled, so she played her ace. Think of the hard-working bakers. Wasting food makes everyone sad. You have to finish every single bite, or else you're punished. Violetta's bossy energy left Dad completely stunned. Mom used to lecture him just like that. They were spitting images. Memories flooding back. He asked, "How did Mom punish you for leftovers?" Violetta pinched her own cheeks, mimicking Mom's go-to disciplinary move. "I thought my face would stretch off." Hearing this, Dad's reaction shifted. He inhaled the bread instantly. "With how much you eat," he muttered. "Your cheeks won't thin out easily, so slow down and finish everything." With that, Dad vanished in a blur, leaving Violetta standing alone. Seriously, who eats that fast? How will I ever get close to him? Aside from her father, her bond with the servants flourished brilliantly in this new life. Lucia's change was most shocking. She even hosted a chaotic meet and greet for the animals. Even though the room was loud with endless chatter, Violet found herself secretly vibing with the warmth of having her squad gathered all around her. Without even noticing, she completely demolished every dessert Lucia and the others had served. Seeing her appetite, the staff immediately rushed to fetch their lady more delicious treats. But the moment they vanished, her father appeared, finding Violet looking totally isolated. He instantly moved to take her for a meal, while Violet struggled to explain. However, her father coldly vowed to handle the servants who had supposedly abandoned her. Panic flared in Violet as she desperately shielded Lucia and the crew from his wrath. Her father merely sighed, convinced she was just like her mother, dangerously kind-hearted. Ultimately, Violet's father forced her to dinner anyway. While picking at her plate, she suddenly recalled how her coworkers tried to flip their tragic scripts by charming the villains, and shockingly, it actually worked for them. After a massive mental struggle, Violet decided to risk it. She flashed Dad a smile. "Dad, the steak is top tier, and this strawberry cake is fire. Want a taste?" She speared a piece of cake like it was a rare treasure and held it to his lips. But he just asked coldly, "What's your point?" Talk about a total buzzkill. Her heart sank. Was taking one bite really that hard? She'd tried so hard to hype it up, yet no matter how she gestured, her father remained a total stone wall. He clearly didn't get the vibe of sharing a favorite treat. To him, was eating just some boring chore? Violetta fell silent, disappointment stinging as she realized melting his icy heart would be a total marathon. Her head slumped, and the sweet treat slipped from her fork, hitting the floor. Seeing the mess, Dad instantly barked orders at the servants to clear it away. Violet finally reached her breaking point. "Why can't you just see it?" she cried. "I offered you my favorite dish, and you coldly brushed me off. Never again." Stung by her pain, Dad's cold facade finally cracked as he tried to explain. "I want to be with you," he admitted. "I guess I have to finish this cake." Without another word, he swallowed the remaining bite in one go. He then softly asked if she wanted another slice. Violet beamed, her heart soaring. Today was a massive win for their relationship. The hype was so real that she was still wide awake at midnight. Creeping out for a snack, she stumbled upon a nightmare she'd never forget. Dad's door was shattered, and he was inside, soaked in his own blood. In that chilling moment, she realized how broken he truly was without Mom. By morning, Dad was burning up with fever, yet he still forced himself to leave. No one could hold him back. Desperate, the assistant realized only one person could. He sprinted to find Violet. She knew this might mess up the story's path. But after hearing everything, she couldn't just sit back and chose to go. Instead of a dramatic plea, she simply wished him a safe journey. As the assistant stood there baffled, Violet stepped directly into Dad's path. "Why stop him?" she mused. "He's just a man who misses his wife too much." She gently took his hand. "But Dad, promise you'll actually eat and rest. Only a healthy body can bring Mom back." Looking at her tiny familiar face, Dad felt his icy heart completely melt into a puddle. She looked like him, but her spirit was a mirror of his late wife. It finally clicked. He wasn't the only one mourning. She lost a mother too. Looking back, he realized how much he'd shifted since she arrived home. He'd even stopped his lethal impulses around other kids, finding them homes instead. Maybe Violet was the ultimate parting gift from his beloved wife. This tiny girl had silently rewritten his entire world with her presence. Convinced at last, Dad stayed put, finally listening to his body's limits. In the days that followed, the wall between them finally crumbled to dust. The staff breathed a sigh of relief. Soon, the doctor arrived for a checkup. She gifted Violet a special growth formula, hoping for a healthy sprout. Violet was weirded out by the extra energy until she spotted a specific book. A child psychology guide sat on the shelf. Everything suddenly made sense. To keep the doc happy, Violet played along with a few bright smiles. During their lively chat, the assistant suddenly rushed in, looking frantic. He dropped to his knees. "Lady Violet, thank you for stopping the Duke. Honestly, I was mad at you at first, until I heard what you said." We totally ignored his feelings. Violet quickly offered him some comfort. "Hey, you're precious to Dad too. You've always looked out for him." Hearing that, the assistant's eyes welled up with actual tears. "My lady, I don't deserve this job," he sobbed, but a sharp voice cut him off. Dad stood there, scolding him. "That's enough. Don't act like this in front of her." He scooped Violet up for lunch, sparing a final glance at the kneeling man. Quitting over such a trivial matter is honestly pathetic. Consider this a forced vacation to clear your head. Without giving his assistant a chance to protest, Dad scooped up Violetta and marched away. By the time the man recovered, he hollered at the top of his lungs, "Duke, I'll serve you forever. You're the one who rejected my resignation. So don't you dare regret it later." His voice boomed so loudly that nearly everyone in the ducal estate caught the whole drama. Dad looked visibly mortified. A short while later, the father-daughter duo headed to the dining hall for lunch. Out of nowhere, Dad mentioned rumors of a local alchemist who mastered the art of resurrection. He planned to investigate immediately, but promised to be back by dinner. Unsurprisingly, his desperate obsession with bringing Mom back from the dead was still going strong. However, the fact that he was actually sharing his schedule was a huge win, so Violetta happily gave her blessing. That night, she staked out by the window with a strawberry cake, waiting for that chubby bird to deliver a letter. She had lost track of how many days she'd been waiting. Were there just too many reincarnated souls needing help these days? Just as she was about to give up, the bird's frantic voice chirped, "Don't you dare toss that! Isn't that for me?" He dive-bombed headfirst into the cake, splattering Violetta's entire face with thick cream. Fortunately for him, he actually carried a divine message this time. Otherwise, she would have plucked every single one of his feathers. The deity's new command was specific. She had to prevent her father from going out any further. According to these orders, the heavens intended for her to completely derail the original plot. But was interfering really the right move? Violetta spiraled into deep thought, tuning out the chubby bird's noisy chirping. Annoyed at being ignored, the bird delivered a sharp peck to her head. That definitely snapped her back to reality. A sudden idea struck her, and she turned toward the bird with an intense, desperate gaze. "Can you take a reply back for me?" The bird quickly signaled that such a thing was strictly against the rules. He couldn't leak any intel about the sender either. Upon hearing that, Violetta took the letter and shredded it right in front of the bird's beak. The bird was absolutely shook. "I have lived for hundreds of years, and this is the very first time I've seen someone commit such open rebellion right to my face." Violetta's expression shifted instantly into one of cold defiance. "Oh, give me a break. Communication is a two-way street. If I can't speak back, then I'll let my actions send the message. Even side characters have rights. You know, all I want is to understand the true purpose behind my reincarnation. What's the point of all this work I'm doing? Is asking that really a crime? Tell the sender I expect a real answer soon." The bird fumed at her stubborn, bossy attitude. "If the sender knew how bratty you were being, they'd eat you alive. The instructions were crystal clear. Why can't you just follow them?" The bird's harsh words cut Violetta deeper than she expected. "I've endured 100 lives of total confusion," she screamed, "always trapped as the villain's daughter. Do you have any idea how exhausting these dark, hopeless days are?" The bird, completely unfazed, made it clear he wasn't interested in her sob story and took off. Violetta watched his silhouette vanish, lowering her head in silence. She just wanted a way out so her father wouldn't suffer. Still frustrated, she shouted toward the empty sky where the bird had disappeared, "You jerk bird. Next time, pay for the cake. You're banned from my snacks." But as the words left her mouth, she realized with total horror that Dad was standing right behind her the entire time. Poor Lucia ended up taking the heat for it. Dad was convinced that Violetta's bizarre behavior, shouting at thin air and birds, was all Lucia's bad influence. He was furious that she'd left little Violetta alone in the garden. To him, such incompetence was unforgivable. Lucia didn't just sit there and take the insults, though. She fired back at the Duke with zero hesitation. "I admit I messed up, Your Grace, but you're hardly a role model. You're drunk every single night and you're never actually home. Have you ever even tried to be a real father? Then you're the absolute worst father, too." Seeing the tension hit a breaking point, Violetta was about to step in when the assistant held her back. Suddenly, they witnessed a truly jarring sight. Lucia's stinging words had actually worked, plunging the mighty Duke into a pit of crushing self-doubt. Violetta couldn't take it anymore. She dashed toward them on her tiny legs and began lecturing the pair. Why are you both being so cruel? You're the people I cherish most. Lucia, you're already incredible. Honestly, being my maid feels like a total waste of your immense talent. But Lucia only grew more heartbroken. But my lady, I want to protect you forever. Seeing the mood sinking even lower, Violetta pivoted her focus toward her father. In my eyes, Daddy is also absolutely wonderful. He eats with me every single day. Little did she know, this simple compliment only deepened his despair. If eating together was his only contribution, the Duchess would be utterly disappointed in him from beyond. Just as Violetta struggled to lift their spirits, a guard burst in with an urgent report. Your Grace, please come to the dungeon immediately. Upon hearing this, the Duke snatched Violetta up and bolted toward the cells, leaving the poor girl spinning in total confusion. Why was she suddenly being dragged into the dark depths? Had Dad completely lost it from the shock? At the scene, the Duke shielded her eyes and demanded the guard explain the chaos. It turned out the Viscount, broken by 4 months of brutal interrogation in the shadows, had finally snapped. In a fit of madness, he had mercilessly beaten Adriel, eventually alerting the nearby sentries. Violetta felt a wave of pure loathing, especially knowing Adriel was the victim. Her blood boiled, and the Duke's fury was equally terrifying. This wasn't the plan. He had specifically ordered better treatment for the boy. How did he end up rotting in a dungeon? Investigation revealed it was pure negligence from the staff. Enraged, the Duke prepared to punish them severely, but Violetta realized Adriel's life was the priority. Without hesitation, she demanded her father seek medical aid for the boy first. I love it when Daddy helps others, she chirped. That single sentence shattered the Duke's gloom, and he immediately barked orders to save Adriel. With Adriel safe, it was time to handle the Viscount. Recalling how that scum had mistreated his family, the Duke suddenly found himself in total agreement with Violetta's earlier coldness. He planned to dismantle the man piece by piece, starting with his fingers. The sheer, ruthless energy radiating from father and daughter sent chills down the guards' spines. But Violetta knew a quick death was too merciful for a monster like him, so she stopped her father's hand. The guards thought she was showing mercy, but her next words left them absolutely speechless. If he dies now, what happens to his gold? He still owes me massive compensation. I spent years scrubbing his floors, cleaning toilets, ironing clothes, and hauling out his trash. She had been a literal slave and hadn't seen a single penny. As Violetta listed her grievances, the Duke's expression turned lethally dark. He turned to his assistant and issued a chilling command. Seize every single asset the Viscount owns and transfer it all to Violetta's name immediately. A month later, the Black Panther flags of the duchy were hoisted high over the Viscount's former lands. It was a grim signal that the Viscount was gone for good. Meanwhile, his wife, hearing the news, packed her things to flee. She had warned her husband never to provoke the fallen Duchess's family, but his arrogance had led to their total annihilation. If their illegal underground slave trade was uncovered, death would be the least of her worries. She had to vanish before the Duke's men closed in. But just as hope faded, a mysterious man cloaked in shadows appeared, searching for Adriel's original slave contract. Watching him take the document, the Viscountess actually felt a massive weight lift off her shoulders. That file was a ticking time bomb, and she was glad to be rid of it. With Adriel's records now in unknown hands, the gears of fate began to turn once more. News of House Valeria seizing the Viscount's estate spread through high society like wildfire. Word broke that the Duke handed the entire fortune to 5-year-old Violet. The other lords fumed in envy, yet they remained silent, terrified of his overwhelming power. They could only wait for the next council meeting to see if the rumors were true. But there was a catch: that madman hadn't shown his face in 5 years, ever since his wife vanished. Obsessed with resurrecting her, he'd likely skip this year's meeting too. Nearby, Duke Beltran's blood boiled. He couldn't stand the spotlight always being on the Valerias. Driven by spite, he volunteered to investigate the situation himself. He became the room's sudden hero. Meanwhile, a shadowy figure appeared. A man in black presented stolen slave records to a mysterious lady. She deemed it too risky to hold, letting him guard the secret. When she asked for updates, he dropped a bombshell. He claimed the Duke's recent madness was all because of Violet. He even offered to take care of the girl if she became an obstacle. But she ordered him to watch. She was curious about Adriel's next move. After his treatment, Adriel began a long recovery, bringing Violet some much-needed peace. She wouldn't lose her first friend. Suddenly, Lucia burst in, hauling a massive sack. "Ready?" she asked. Violet's eyes sparkled, begging her to let the cash fly. Lucia showered the room in gold, and Violet dove into the sea of riches with joy. Everything was finally looking up. Soon, she'd have enough cash to make her escape. Or maybe, she could stop her father from ever meeting the Empress. If she broke his obsession with holy power, they could be a real family. Lost in thought, she was startled by Lucia and the assistant. Lucia asked shyly, "Miss, which do you love more, my cat plushie or the money?" Violet hated to hurt her feelings, but she couldn't lie to her own heart. She awkwardly chose the gold. Hearing this, the assistant perked up instantly. "Then what about me versus the money, miss?" Seeing his smug grin, Violet ruthlessly picked the cash again. Then, Dad joined in with the ultimate question. Money or me? Without a second thought, Violet chose her father. He booped her nose with a smile. "Silly girl, you should want both." Their bond was growing deeper, and his sudden change of heart left her conflicted. Maybe she didn't need to run. If she could save Dad, they could finally be happy. Torn between two paths, she met her inner selves in a dream. Her single ponytail side insisted on following the original script. Side characters have rules, and interfering with the plot is a big no-no, but her double ponytail self called that logic totally lame. This second life was a miracle, not a prison sentence. Even the fat little bird was assigned to forge a new path. Could she really abandon them? Could she stand by and watch the entire Valeria bloodline be slaughtered once again? The thought sent a chill through her. Violet refused to let that happen. Her inner selves reached a verdict. They would stay and protect their people. The catalyst for her father's descent into darkness was that archipelago trip. There, he met the Empress and her divine power. Violet had to stop him. She had to block that journey at all costs. But she had no idea that while lost in dreams, Father was already geared up for the perilous archipelago. Before departing, he visited Violetta, seeing her tiny fingers clutching his massive hand, refusing to let go. His cold heart suddenly melted. He actually considered taking her. Had the guards not warned about the brutal climate, he might have done it. Ultimately, he prepared to leave reluctantly, but before stepping out, he commanded his assistant to ensure Violetta's safety during his long absence. 3 weeks, that was the goal. Then, he vanished into the morning mist. The next morning, Violetta woke up with a fire and a clear mission. Spotting Lucia, she lunged. "Lucia, you're bossy, but you're my precious family. I'll protect you." Hearing herself called family sent a shockwave through Lucia's heart. Tears of joy welled up as she gave a hug that nearly choked her. Heading to breakfast, the servants' warm smiles boosted her spirits significantly. It felt incredible. She even took a detour through the estate gardens. Carefully, she handpicked the most vibrant flowers to decorate a crystal vase. For Father, she thought, but the assistant looked absolutely drained in the hall. Sensing her worry, the man admitted he hadn't slept at all last night. He didn't expect the young lady to actually care about his state. Her sweet words hit him like a warm embrace, touching his soul deeply. However, dread set in. How could he tell her that Father was gone? Right on cue, as she sat for breakfast, the dreaded question escaped her. Where's Dad? Learning he was already island-bound for 3 weeks was a shock. Her world began to spin. The timeline was worse than she imagined. Her vow to stop him had crumbled before she could even act. The crushing weight of failure was too much. She collapsed on the floor. Panic erupted as they summoned the doctor. She resented him for leaving silently. The physician arrived, casually stating it was just stress, needing a few days' rest. Rage boiled over. Violetta didn't hold back and scolded the doctor immediately. "You're totally incompetent. You haven't a clue what's actually happening to me. This is a mental battle, and you've failed me." The doctor was shell-shocked. Questioning her career, the doctor left. From that moment, Violetta went silent. No matter how much the staff pleaded, she wouldn't budge. Time heals, though. They say time is the ultimate healer for a wounded soul. By the 4th day, the storm inside her had finally begun to subside. She even started eating strawberry cake again. It wasn't a total game over. She hadn't hit a dead end yet. There was still a glimmer of hope. 14 years remained until doom. Surely, that was enough time to rewrite destiny. Just then, hushed whispers from the hallway caught her sharp ears. The maids were celebrating her return to the table. Then, the mood shifted. One servant leaned in, cautiously questioning Lucia about a sensitive matter. "Should we tell the miss about Adriel?" Even whispered. The name hit hard. Violetta picked it up instantly. "Adriel?" Something was definitely wrong. She flung the door open. "Tell me right now, what happened to Adriel?" She demanded Lucia lead her to him immediately. His condition was reportedly critical. Anxiety gripped her. In his room, the servants saw her as a savior. They begged her to help persuade Adriel after seeing the situation herself. The truth was harsh. Since waking up, Adriel had completely refused to touch his food. No matter how much the maids begged, he wouldn't budge. Without nutrients, his recovery would stall. The servants were losing their minds. Suddenly, a maid spotted Violetta lurking by the door and bowed instantly. Adriel's eyes shimmered as he saw her. "Is it really you, Violetta?" Seeing Adriel awake, she beamed. "Correct. Now that I am here, you must eat. Besides, patients shouldn't stay on their feet. Sit down this instant." Adriel rejected her and stared intensely. "I know you are just a slave like me. Did that maniac kidnap you as well?" As he spoke, his wounds flared with agonizing pain. He almost collapsed. Yet he gripped her shoulders, desperately pleading for her to escape. "Get out. This place belongs to a notorious demon." She knew her father's reputation was trash, but hearing it from Adriel still stung. Regardless, she wasn't going to hide the truth. She dismissed the maids immediately. Witnessing the staff bow to her with deep respect, Adriel's face went pale. "So, you're the lady of House Valeria? Why does it have to be you?" His melancholy look confused her. "Yes, I am truly the daughter of the Duke. I specifically ordered my father to treat you. Also, lose the formal talk between us." Despite her nagging, Adriel stubbornly insisted on using formal titles in speech. His coldness made her blood boil. But then, Adriel suddenly dodged her hand without hesitation. Did he hate her for her bloodline? Just like those fake socialites from her past life. They never actually cared about her, only using her status to climb the social ladder. Was the first friend of her new life exactly like those toxic people? Swallowing her pride, she stopped pushing him. Instead, she ordered Lucia to bring some food. She demanded he eat before receiving treatment, but Adriel couldn't afford such a lavish feast. Violetta reassured him it was free of charge. Once the treatment was finished, Adriel could leave whenever he wished. Right now, his recovery was her only priority. Seeing her genuine worry, Adriel finally relented. However, he refused the expensive steak. He only wanted plain wheat bread. Violetta couldn't believe how difficult he was being. She sighed, claiming that if he didn't eat, she would toss the 3 gold coin steak. After all, nobody eats a slave's leftovers. Hearing the staggering price tag, Adriel finally wavered. There was just one issue. He had no clue how to eat steak. Violetta was stunned by his innocence and immediately speared a piece of meat with her fork. She told him to open wide. Adriel was hesitant, but her energy was just too much. He surrendered and let her feed him like a child. After successfully feeding him, Violetta was thrilled and immediately decided to set 3 specific rules for him. Rule number 1, when it's just the 2 of us, stop using that formal language. Thanks to her persistence, Adriel began eating properly. However, he developed a strange obsession with chocolate croissants. He begged the maids for one at every meal. Hearing this, Violetta felt extremely awkward. She never expected her first kind gesture since reincarnating would lead to such a weird obsession. Was he seriously addicted to croissants? He wanted them constantly. If she'd known, she would have given him something else. But he looked so fragile, she feared he'd collapse. So, she pulled out her emergency croissant. Noticing her concern, Lucia asked if she wanted to visit Adriel later that day. Remembering Adriel's fragile state, she declined. He likely needed some time alone to process this new reality. Adriel's reaction yesterday had been incredibly bizarre. Usually, if a slave meets a noble, they don't even dare to make eye contact. Yet, he held her gaze with unwavering intensity until she finally left the room. Adriel was paralyzed. Discovering her true identity left him drowning in a sea of melancholy. "Why her?" he muttered. He had zero fear of the nobility. What was his deal? Was she just overthinking? Maybe Adriel was just low-key traumatized by high society drama. As she spiraled, a sudden thunderclap shook the windows, ushering in a violent downpour. Lucia instantly pulled her into a protective embrace. "Don't be scared, my lady. I'm right here." Lucia's warmth was touching, but the rain only dragged her back to her dark past. Suddenly, she caught a glimpse of the assistant, lurking through the door's narrow crack. In her previous timeline, that man was the catalyst for her family's absolute downfall. Even if she couldn't stop her father, she refused to let history repeat itself. The mission was set. At 2 a.m., Lucia would bait the assistant. Meanwhile, she'd infiltrate the office to handle those lethal documents once and for all. Being trapped in a child's body made staying awake a nightmare, but the stakes were too high. Finally, the paper mouse Lucia left behind began to twitch. The signal was live. It was go time. Shaking off the fatigue, she ghosted through the hallways toward the office. Finding the hall deserted, she couldn't help but admire Lucia's flawless tactical execution. If this worked, Lucia deserved a major promotion. She slipped inside without a sound. Disaster struck as she pulled the files. The sheer weight caught her completely off guard. Balance? Gone. The heavy documents hit the floor with a deafening crash. It was a total mess, but she had to find that specific proposal before time ran out. There it was, the plan to sever the Dorian Kingdom's financial lifeline. 2 years ago, Dorian and the Empire clashed over territory in a brutal war. The Valeria family led the charge, securing a total victory for the Empire. With Dorian defeated, Prince Pedro was dragged away as a political hostage. But silence fell over Dorian soon after, and the Valerias decided to cut them off. That single decision sparked a burning hatred in Pedro that would last a lifetime. When Pedro eventually became king, his first act was the systematic extermination of House Valeria. Terrified, Violetta moved to shred the proposal, but a shadow suddenly loomed over her. The assistant was right there. Her heart stopped as she screamed for the guards. But to her horror, Lucia came running in too. Was she betrayed by her only ally? The assistant dropped a bombshell. They were actually both looking out for her. According to him, adults had a duty to guide her properly through life. Furious, Violetta sank her teeth into his hand and turned to Lucia for the truth. But Lucia's answer was a carbon copy of the assistant's. Her heart shattered instantly. You too, Lucia? You're leaving me? Lucia looked absolutely crushed by the guilt. Sobbing a broken apology, Lucia bolted from the room, leaving her alone. A 5-year-old stood no chance against the assistant's strength. She had to surrender. Seeing her defeated state, the assistant tried to play the kind mentor card. Why the tears, my lady? Is there a reason you want this proposal gone? Violetta gripped her dress until her knuckles turned white. She knew the terrifying truth. She knew that the lowly hostage Pedro would one day rule the entire empire, but she couldn't say a word. Dropping spoilers like that would glitch the entire timeline. Misinterpreting her inner conflict, the assistant figured she just wanted to doodle. He handed her a fresh sheet of paper, his kindness feeling like a knife to the heart. He assumed she was just playing but felt too shy to say it, quickly grabbing fresh paper. Seeing how caring the assistant was made, Violetta felt absolutely terrible inside. 99 lives in the bag, and I'm still acting like a total brat? This is pathetic. The assistant caught her sudden vibe shift as her spirit hit rock bottom. Without a word, he slid the earlier proposal right back in front of her. Don't pout. If the paperwork bores you, tell me which words are the problem. Violetta's eyes flared with rage as she slammed her finger onto a specific paragraph. His jaw dropped. He never expected her to take issue with that specific clause. It was the plan to axe the entire relief fund for the Dorian Kingdom. Facing his "are you for real" expression, Violetta felt completely drained and helpless. He clearly thought she was trolling, but his next words changed the game completely. Why keep me in the dark? She snapped, her hope suddenly roaring back. Violetta pressed him instantly. Would speaking up actually change anything in this world? He revealed that the council meeting was still on track, exactly as scheduled. But he promised to announce that the lady was officially against this move. The Valeria heir had spoken, and Violetta had to attend the meeting herself. This was her chance, but the family heads would surely tear her logic apart. Panic set in. How was she supposed to face those vultures without a plan? Without a solid reason, she'd just look like a child throwing a messy fit. They'd brand her a spoiled brat, making her an easy target for the elders. Once again, she'd be labeled a villain and forced toward her tragic end. Her impulsive move felt like a disaster, but the assistant saw her realization. Realizing she finally got the stakes, he offered some surprisingly gentle comfort. Growth is messy, kid. Just own your mistakes and fix them. That's being a lady. He was impressed, yet suspicious. How did she even know about this secret draft? Red flags blared in Violetta's head. She was ready to play the dumb card. But he noted how she and Lucia had cooked up such a perfect plan. It was like she'd been tracking this proposal from the very beginning. Are you actually a legendary seer? He joked. Violetta's brain completely short-circuited. She immediately leaned into his wild theory, putting on a world-class performance. The assistant was totally sold. Looking at his naive face, she felt worried. If this guy was the future, the family legacy was in serious trouble. That late-night chat hit hard. Violetta finally realized just how much she'd messed up. She went to every guard and maid from last night to offer an apology. But as she spoke, a massive crowd started gathering out of nowhere. Her assistant was literally hype-manning her, inviting every servant to watch the show. Fuming, she told him to zip it, just as Adriel appeared nearby. Was he actually lowering his guard after seeing her humble herself like this? She begged the assistant to let her finish her round of apologies. Nah, we're done, he shrugged. It's boring without an audience anyway. He just walked off, leaving Violetta absolutely seething with pure rage. Her terrifying aura spooked Adriel, so she sprinted after him to explain. Adriel was moving like a pro athlete, so she ditched her leather shoes. Running barefoot, she screamed for him to stop. Adriel, listen to me! Everything you just saw was a total misunderstanding. Let's just talk. The servants watching this chase were beyond confused at the sudden drama. The knights. They suddenly offered to help her trap Adriel, but she shut them down, insisting on handling it alone. Just as she finally reached for Adriel, she remembered how much he used to despise her touch. Freezing instantly, she chose to handle him with pure gentleness. She called out to Adriel, "Hey, can I hold your hand? Silence means you agree." Without waiting, she locked fingers with him. Gotcha! Now, let's actually talk like normal people. Before he could react, Violetta tripped over her own sock, but the hard floor never hit her. She landed in a warm embrace instead, finding Adriel on the floor, groaning in pain. She scrambled up, panicked, but Adriel suddenly asked, "If I hadn't let you, would you really have forced yourself onto my hand like that?" Violetta just beamed at him. "Duh, I just wanted to clear the air between us." Adriel's expression darkened instantly. "Then I was wrong. I should have just said no. Don't make that weird face again. It doesn't suit a member of the Valeria family at all." Violetta's heart sank. It was official. Adriel absolutely loathed everything about the Valeria name. Why the massive grudge, though? Her dad hadn't done a thing. It literally made zero sense. Just as she opened her mouth, the assistant scooped her up. "There you are, little lady." Dang it, the assistant was ruining everything again. Being seen like this was beyond cringe, especially since Adriel wouldn't stop staring at her. Her face was basically a literal tomato right now. Lucia and the squad arrived. Hearing about the sock trip, Lucia immediately snatched the offending garment away. A servant piped up, reminding her that Violetta mattered way more than a sock. Only then did Lucia stop her dramatic investigation. As the assistant prepped to take her to the infirmary, she called out to Adriel, "You're getting treated soon too. I'm not usually this clumsy, okay? I'll come find you later. Wait for me, deal?" Later, back in her room after the doctor's visit, she absolutely trashed her pillow in frustration. That assistant totally killed the vibe of her conversation. Why was making one friend this hard? But thinking back on Adriel's cold behavior today, did he actually despise her just for being a Valeria? If that was the case, she was in huge trouble. Sleep was officially off the table for the night. She hunted down Lucia for a midnight snack. One slice of strawberry cake later, she finally felt alive. "Lucia, making friends is exhausting," she sighed. Lucia paused, looking deep in thought at her words. "My lady, if you want friends, you should join a social circle. Everyone will want to be your best friends forever." But Violetta knew that game those friends were all fake. One burning question still remained, though. Can a duchess and a slave actually be friends? Lucia was speechless. That only happened in spicy romance novels. That hit deep. After all, her entire reality was literally inside a web novel world right now. Suddenly inspired, she dashed to the shelf and grabbed a red book, begging Lucia to let her borrow it. Lucia freaked out at the cover and immediately swapped it for a harmless storybook instead. "Trust me, my lady, this one's better. It's the tale of the Lion Princess and the Rabbit Baron. They overcome their status gap. It's perfect for you." So, the very next morning, Violetta made the assistant read it aloud. She didn't expect the plot to be such a total banger, especially the part where the Lion Princess goes full vegetarian forever just to be with her bunny boo. Thanks to the assistant's Oscar-worthy voice acting, it all finally clicked in her head. This was basically her and Adriel. If she could be like the Lion Princess and lower her status to match his, wouldn't they become soulmates in no time? She bolted upright. She waved goodbye to the shocked assistant. "Later, bestie. I'm off to go eat some grass. I'm a lioness, after all." Before the man could even process what she said, she was gone, leaving him speechless. He wanted to warn her that lions can't actually digest grass. "No time for logic!" Violetta sprinted straight to Adriel's room, bumping into his personal maid at the door. The maid offered to announce her, but Violetta shut that down instantly. She wanted to be low-key. Peeking through the crack in the door, she saw him gazing out the window, sunlight making him look ethereal. As his features sharpened with an elegant grace, Adriel looked far too noble to be a mere slave. While she was zoning out, Adriel suddenly caught her. "What are you doing here? You okay lately?" Last time, the guards had dragged her away so aggressively. They even snatched her socks, a trauma she'd rather not relive. "I'm totally fine, actually. I messed up back then." Adriel started to ask why, but realized they weren't that close. Embarrassed, he looked away, but Violetta couldn't stand his awkward hesitation. "Truth is, I apologized because I tried to trash the family's top-secret files. Then I caused a scene with you. A slave. Maybe I'm just born reckless." Hearing her flex her chaos so shamelessly left Adriel speechless. He'd never met such a bold girl. Unbothered, Violetta hyped up a lunch date. Adriel just stared, dazed by her blindingly bright smile. "Is hanging out with me okay? Won't the Duke snap? Will you become a bad girl?" Violetta grabbed him. "Listen up, Adriel. Getting scolded and being bad are two different things. Rebelling a bit doesn't make me a villain, so stop stressing and just eat with me." Adriel's face turned bright red. No one had ever spoken to him like that before. She was a total enigma. Plotting her next move during lunch, Violetta chose the same bland bread as Adriel. Predictably, it tasted like absolute trash. Luckily, Adriel finished. She ordered dessert, but instead of her usual strawberry cake craving, Violetta pulled a 180 and ordered the royal signature dessert. Lucia panicked instantly. She asked if Adriel wanted one, though serving a slave such luxury felt totally insane. Violetta wouldn't let anyone ruin her vibe, so Lucia, trapped, had no choice but to prep 2 plates. "Adriel, I didn't order this to pig out. It's about Mr. Rabbit. So, let's feast." Before Adriel could even process who this Mr. Rabbit was, his sharp eyes spotted chocolate on Violetta's cake. Panicked, he tried to lunge and stop her, but the moment he moved, knights swarmed him. Cold steel pointed directly at his throat. Violetta's guard shielded her, glaring at Adriel with pure, icy venom in his eyes. "The lady didn't give you permission to move." Adriel only tried to intervene because of her own little white lie, to make him eat that first croissant. She'd faked an allergy. She never imagined he'd take her casual lie so seriously, or that it'd backfire like this. Now, he was facing execution over a comment she barely remembered making. Guilt crushed her. "Wait! Adriel just saved me! I almost died just now." "Put your swords away. Adriel isn't just a slave, he's just a kid who needs protection." The knights looked skeptical about this sudden lethal allergy, but they obeyed her command anyway. They sheathed their blades but dragged Adriel out of the room with zero chill. They barked a final warning, "Don't you ever try a stunt like that again." Adriel himself was baffled. Why did he move so instinctively to save her? His subconscious simply couldn't handle the thought of her getting hurt. Suddenly, his purple collar buzzed. It was the woman who'd bought him for 5,000 gold. He hated her, but he couldn't act suspicious. He answered the call in stony silence. When asked about the Valerias, he played it cool, claiming he needed more time to observe. But Violetta's voice echoed in his mind, and he couldn't help but ask, "Do children really deserve protection?" Her icy response was a slap. "Are you expecting that too?" Adriel apologized instantly, but she surprisingly told him to drop it for now. She demanded to know where he heard that. Learning it was the Valeria Duchess left her baffled. Rumors claimed the Duchess was exiled. Seeing her in the mansion and sensing Adriel's soft spot was a game changer. It was time to exploit his growing feelings for Violetta. The operation to extract Adriel and Violetta was officially a go. Hearing this, Adriel was low-key hyped. He dreamed of a forever with her, totally oblivious to the storm brewing. Violetta's sus meter was peaking. How would a slave know the secrets of gourmet cake? Those refined manners didn't fit a commoner at all. Who was this guy? Really? She went to the assistant for intel, only to find him passed out at his desk. He looked lifeless, but he was just drowning in work since the Duke left. With Duke Cassiano away, the poor guy was basically running the entire estate solo. Seeing his massive dark circles, Violetta didn't have the heart to bother him. She tried to let him rest, but the assistant stopped her right there. "Listen, kid, we need to have a serious talk about this upcoming mission. I need to verify your prophetic powers before letting you join the operation." Violetta felt the pressure. It seemed Dad had already greenlit the whole plan. Everything was on the line now. Her answer would decide the family's entire future. "Ask me anything," she challenged, keeping her cool under his intense gaze. His first question, "Who's my future wife?" Violetta was straight up speechless. Was this guy seriously using his position to look for a girlfriend? She wasn't some psychic for hire. Since he wanted to play games, it was time to teach him a lesson. She put on her best acting face. "Oh, I see her. But wait, why is your future spouse a man?" "Congrats, you'll have a brave husband." The assistant looked absolutely soul-crushed. Total karma. That's what he gets for asking such a cringe-worthy question. As she turned to leave, he literally grabbed her ankle. "My bad, princess. Jokes aside, here's the real test. When exactly do your brothers return?" Violetta froze. This was a total trap. He knew their official schedules perfectly. He was checking her visions against the family's secret travel logs. But he forgot one thing. She's a reincarnator with a massive cheat code. They were supposed to take a year, but they'll be back in 1 month. "Expect news from the academy in a week," she added with total confidence. Her certainty shook him. Then, she dropped another bombshell prophecy. "In 7 days, Lucia will be dual-wielding swords." He was low-key skeptical. She knew once these came true, he'd follow her with total loyalty. She claimed her visions ended at age 19, which only fueled his curiosity. He wanted to know about that future, but Violetta kept her secrets locked. To her, that timeline wasn't just information, it was a living nightmare. Her heavy expression made his heart sink. He remembered her desperate aura before. It finally clicked. Was the House of Valeria facing some kind of extinction? "Is that why you're so desperate to rewrite destiny?" He finally understood her fear. Violetta officially recruited him into the secret war to save their bloodline. Step 1 of the grand plan? Devouring 3 whole strawberry cakes. By the 4th cake, Lucia snapped. "Why are you letting her do this? She's gonna get sick." But the assistant just stayed perfectly calm and cool. "She has her reasons," he replied. Violetta insisted cake wasn't going to kill her. Lucia couldn't handle their sudden complicity and stormed out in a total rage. Violetta felt bad watching her go, but she had to stay focused. The assistant was all in now. Her prophecies were hitting with 100% accuracy. Octavio wasn't buying her act for a second. After Lucia slipped away, he deadpanned, questioning if binging strawberry cake was truly for the family's sake. Violetta smirked. "Duh, Octavio, I'm the Valeria Duchess. My happiness is the family's happiness." The assistant just stared at her, unimpressed by her logic, and snatched her 4th slice away. "Since you ate for our joy, you should brush your teeth for the family's health." Violetta's eyes widened. "Fine, I'll brush right after this last bite, I swear." But Octavio was stone-faced. "Nice try, kid. I respect your prophecy skills, but I'm no fool. Besides, the Duke's latest letter ordered me to guard you, so please cooperate." And just like that, the Duchess was marched off to brush her teeth. Fuming, she stormed into the garden. That assistant was a total villain, stealing her sweets. He and Lucia were definitely in cahoots. Whatever, she wasn't going to let them ruin her nap. The sun was perfect for a lawn siesta, but just as she drifted off, Adriel appeared. He rushed over, panicked. "Duchess, why are you lying on the ground? Are you sick? To avoid a whole scene, Violetta stayed silent and ignored him. That was a mistake. Adriel spiraled, thinking he was the problem. Did she get scolded for eating with a slave like him? I'm so sorry. This is all my fault, he sobbed. Panic! Violetta sat up instantly. Adriel, stop crying. I was just... Before she could finish, he lunged into a desperate hug. Please, forgive me. Did they punish you because of me? Are you hurt? Violetta froze. Adriel was a total mess of emotions and wasn't listening to a word. She just held him until the tears stopped. Adriel, breathe. Are you okay? Why the waterworks? I was literally just trying to take a nap. A nap? On the grass? Out of nowhere? Hearing her casual answer, Adriel snapped out of it. Sleeping outside is dangerous. You can't just do that. Violetta's patience snapped. She'd been lectured all day. She was the Valeria Duchess. Why was everyone trying to micromanage her life? Her temper flared. I'll do what I want in my own home. Stay out of my business. The words bit hard. Seeing Adriel's crushed expression, her heart sank. She'd done it again. Her inner villainess had accidentally leaked out. She tried to apologize, but Adriel backed away. Fine, just go to your room. Stop making me worry about you. He turned to leave, but she grabbed his sleeve. Adriel, wait, I didn't mean it like that. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Can you forgive me? To her surprise, he softened immediately. I'll forgive you, but promise you won't pull a stunt like that again. Relieved, Violetta beamed and offered her pinky. Deal. No more worrying you, I promise. With the beef settled, she asked why he was in the garden anyway. He'd been looking for her, feeling burdened by his debt to her. She'd saved his life, fed him, and clothed him. He needed a way to pay her back. Violetta's eyes lit up with an idea. Then work for me. Stay at the estate, earn a wage, and be with me daily. She worried Octavio might block the idea, but she wasn't about to force Adriel into anything. Suddenly, Adriel looked conflicted. Can I really trust the Valeria name? Clearly, he wasn't just any slave, and his grudge against her family ran deep. She desperately hoped Adriel would lean on her. After all, her pride was the legendary Valeria bloodline. They hadn't just secured a crushing victory in the war. They commanded a legion of loyal vassals. Most importantly, her father ruled over it all. Adriel had zero reasons to worry. No matter what path he took, their bond was solid. Suddenly, he asked, could working here earn him 5,000 gold? Flashing a confident smirk, she told him it was a guaranteed yes. Right then, Adriel envisioned buying his freedom and staying by Violetta's side forever. But reality hit hard. The assistant shut it down instantly. Seeing him so stubborn, Violetta unleashed her secret weapon, pure daddy's girl charm. Since we brought Adriel home, we're responsible for his fate, so please, Octavius, just agree to this. Powerless against her pouting, he sighed, saying he'd report to her father first. Hearing that, she thought the deal was sealed and cheered with Adriel. But Octavius killed the mood instantly. I never said this was allowed. Send him back now. We need a serious talk. Reluctantly, Violetta had to dismiss Adriel, telling him to wait in his room. The second he left, the assistant's face turned icy. Little lady, is this a joke? Is this another one of your prophecies? Seeing his glare, Violetta scrambled for an explanation. Adriel wasn't in my visions, this is just fate! Octavius was left completely speechless. Forget fate. We need to focus on the upcoming high-level council meeting. The other lords won't just buy this prophet story. We need a different strategy. Silence from a defeated state smells like a coup. In this chaotic mess, I can't justify the funding, yet you claim cutting it off will destroy the Valerias. Violetta nodded solemnly. That was the brutal reality they were staring at. Their number one rule? Do not provoke Prince Pedro at any cost. Just as she was about to speak, Lucia burst in, shouting, Sir Assistant, we have a problem! A crisis had erupted. Upon hearing the news, the assistant was forced to cut the meeting short. He had to go welcome Duke Beltran. Hearing that name made Violetta's heart plummet. Duke Beltran, the man himself. His lineage was just a branch of the Valerias, but he clawed his way up into the four great families using dirty tricks. He'd always craved the Valerias' prestige, obsessed with copying them, but lacking the talent to actually replace them. Just then, a knock echoed. Thinking it was the assistant returning, Violetta rushed to the door. But instead, a blue-haired girl stood there, clutching a stuffed rabbit tight. The girl's eyes lit up with pure hype. Oh my god, father, I finally found her. Lady Duchess, it's my first time seeing you for real. You're exactly like the rumors. The black hair, those purple eyes. Stunning, Violetta cringed at the intense staring. Why are you here? Barging in uninvited is totally rude. Instantly, the girl burst into tears. I'm sorry. My dad told me to find you. Seeing the waterworks, Violetta felt totally drained. Still a crybaby, just like in her past life. This was Bella, the Duke's youngest daughter. Her father always compared her to Violetta, and her lack of magic made her a target. She looked hopeless now, but she'd eventually become the youngest archmage in history. Realizing her dad probably forced her into this, Violetta couldn't stay mad at her. But with those endless tears, she legit worried Bella might pass out from dehydration. To stop the flood, Violetta quickly offered her a slice of top-tier cake. The mention of cake worked like magic. Strawberry shortcake, the ultimate peace offering. A few bites later, Bella finally chilled out, much to Violetta's massive relief. Violetta demanded answers. Bella fired back with fake excitement about her past. Thinking Bella was just a naive kid, Violetta cooked up a quick cover story. I am 5. I lived with a wealthy family before coming to the duchy. Bella's gaze turned icy instantly. Stop capping! You are a total liar! I already did the research. You were just a slave for that, Viscount. Violetta was shook. She did not expect Beltran to spill her secrets to a child. Then Bella flashed a creepy smirk. If I was as miserable as you, maybe Papa would notice me. She chucked the bunny doll at Violetta. Bella started fake sobbing. Right on cue, Beltran rushed in for their little drama. It clicked. Violetta finally saw the twisted game they were playing. This girl was not an angel. She was just as toxic as her old man. Violetta shoved the doll back. Stop the act. I have plenty of dolls. I do not need your trash. You trespassed here and dared to call me a thief? Guards, get them out! Beltran's blood boiled at her sudden clapback. He was about to snap, but the knights swarmed the room instantly. Luckily, Octavio arrived to stop the brawl. Beltran's ego surged again. Octavio, perfect timing. I believe this girl needs a serious reality check. She has no class because of her slave past. Teach her some respect. Octavio shot a cold look at Violetta. The Duke makes a fair point. Violetta's heart dropped as the assistant snatched the plushie from her hands. But, Octavio added, you clearly do not know how the Valeria family rolls. In this territory, the master is the one and only absolute king. Even if the lady actually did something, you have zero right to bark orders. He handed the doll back. Beltran was speechless, shaking with pure salt. Keep acting up and I will call the Duke home to negotiate personally. Just the mention of her father made Beltran's confidence evaporate instantly. He grabbed the doll and dragged Bella out, retreating like a total coward. Crisis averted thanks to Octavio. But Violetta learned a valuable lesson. Her father's power was the real deal. Then, a galaxy brain idea hit her. She finally knew how to handle the Dorian Kingdom's relief funds. Back in his office, Octavio found a letter from the Duke filled with praise. He was speechless. The Duke was the ultimate overprotective girl dad. And of course, the Duke was planning to ghost the next big meeting. Thinking of today's chaos, Octavio decided to spill the tea in a report. He knew the Duke was still obsessing over his precious daughter. Seeing Violetta stand her ground today had left a massive impression. Octavio felt she might actually be the one to save the Valeria name. But he did not realize the Duke would lose his mind after reading it. Not just because Beltran dared to mess with his little girl, but because of something much worse happening in his absence. That kid Adriel, the one they basically picked up off the street. He dared to eye the Duke's daughter? Absolutely not. Completely intolerable. The Duke ditched the Empress meeting to head straight home. He was going to lay the smackdown on anyone testing his patience, especially that boy who dared to touch his daughter's hand. The day of the council meeting finally arrived, and Violetta was sprinting toward the grand boardroom. Suddenly, Lucia came charging from behind, frantically delivering the crucial documents she'd accidentally left behind. Octavio was already there, waiting to greet her, his sharp gaze fixed on the young lady. He urged Violetta to do a final gear check to ensure nothing else was missing. He also hyped her up, noting that her fit for the day screamed total professional. This glow-up was all thanks to the maids, pairing the Valeria family crest with a sleek panther hair ribbon. With a face that mirrored the Duke's noble features, anyone could see she was the Valeria heiress. Octavio double-checked the files in his hands, though he'd be the one voicing the main points today. To prove she was locked in and serious about the meeting, he had specially prepared this research. He'd gone the extra mile to craft this high-level material well in advance for her. Now, Violetta just had to walk in, maintain her aura, and navigate the vassal's questions flawlessly. This was her moment to shine, and leave the inner circle absolutely speechless. Violetta hadn't anticipated an interrogation, but Octavio told her to stay calm and keep her head up. Since it was her debut before the council, it was only natural they'd want to test her. Hearing that, Violetta's legs turned to jelly as she collapsed, her entire body trembling with pure anxiety. She didn't expect to lose her cool and catch a case of stage fright before it even started. It was honestly a bit cringe. Suddenly, Octavio's hand appeared in front of her like a lifeline. Don't stress, my lady. They don't want a cold-hearted ruler. They want someone who truly loves this family. He was certain that once she spoke from the heart, they would all be on her side. Feeling an instant wave of relief, she took his hand and marched toward the boardroom with resolve. Being the first to arrive, her nerves were still through the roof, but she fought for composure. In her memories, these vassals were decent people, but they'd been traumatized by her father's chaotic rule. They had spent years catching heat from the public, suffering under the Duke's unhinged reputation. In her past life, After the family's downfall, only the greedy Beltrons stuck around to scavenge. Every other loyalist had cut ties, leaving the Valeria name to rot in total isolation. That betrayal caused the family's extinction, and this time, she was determined to protect their legacy. She realized that she and the vassals were actually allies fighting for the exact same goal. She prayed her sincerity would reach them, just as Viscount Candace made his grand entrance. Seeing the Duke's empty seat, his face dropped. He gave Violetta a cold, indifferent side-eye. He brushed past her like she was invisible, as the other grumbling nobles began to file in. The room was buzzing with saltiness as they complained about the Duke skipping out on them again. They immediately started voting on their own, desperate to speed run through this pointless meeting. Watching them carelessly move to axe the aid funds for the Dorian Kingdom, Violetta snapped. Gripping the blue rejection token, she slammed it onto the table with a resounding thud. "Withdraw that motion immediately!" As a Valeria, I officially veto the cut to Dorian's aid. Thinking about how she'd been scared of these guys made her blood boil with pure annoyance. These vassals clearly didn't give a damn about the family. She locked eyes with Viscount Candace. Candace looked exactly like a Valeria pureblood and was the youngest family head in imperial history. His legendary status was built on his insane, top-tier talent in the field of alchemy. Recalling future rumors, Violetta put him on blast, asking how his secret weapons business was faring. Candace was absolutely shook. He never expected a young girl to have intel on his private dealings. Even Octavio's jaw dropped as he leaned in to whisper, "My lady, that's way too personal." Violetta whispered back that she was just lighting a fire to wake up their sleeping fighting spirit. Octavio was impressed. Then, the impossible happened. Candace actually started bragging about his recent wins to her. He was genuinely hyped and curious to see what other cards this girl was hiding. Little Violetta, barely 5 years old, was already sharp. She calmly held up 4 fingers. With a pure look, she claimed she'd been reading and writing since age 4. While staying at the Viscount's, she'd tracked every Valeria family update through the newspapers. "Be honest," she urged. "Let's work together to restore our family's fallen glory." That was the meeting's true purpose. Violetta's genius performance absolutely floored the vassals. During the session, Marquis Twillim pitched expanding their transport empire into the south. This move would streamline trade with the Free Nation across the border. Anxiety hit Violetta hard. The Free Nation was her secret escape route. Viscount Candace sensed her panic and steered the council back to the main agenda. Today's real mission, deciding whether to cut aid funds to the Kingdom of Dorian. A silver-haired noble barked, "Cut them off!" Those losers stopped communicating without permission. To him, their silence was nothing short of a blatant act of treason. A red-haired vassal agreed, insisting the Valeria family must take absolute command. Watching the chaos, Octavio was stunned by Violetta's poise. Suddenly, Lucia burst in. A frantic servant leaned in and whispered a chilling report into Octavio's ear. His face turned pale instantly. He leaned over to warn Violetta of the danger. An assassin had breached the mansion. He ordered her to stay put until it was safe. Octavio masked his fear and kept the meeting going while Adriel finished his meal. Ever since Violetta's lecture, Adriel hadn't left a single scrap of food on his plate. The maid was relieved, warning him to stay hidden during the high-stakes council meeting. Adriel didn't care about the rules. He only cared if Violetta was attending that meeting. The maid flinched under his icy glare and finally admitted the young lady was there. Adriel turned away coldly. Once alone, he gripped his secret communication charm. His master had specifically ordered him to bring it to this Valeria family meeting. The timing was too perfect. Was his master planning to strike Violetta right now? His master loathed the Valerias. He couldn't let her be tortured. He had to move. Life was a living hell before her. Violetta was the light that saved him. He wouldn't let anyone take her. Now, it was his turn to be her shield. Inside the boardroom, tension was suffocating. Octavio struggled to keep the nobles calm. The heavy atmosphere weighed on Violetta. She suddenly yearned for her father's presence. Noticing her flicker of fear, Octavio handed her the critical research files he'd prepared. "My lady, the stage is yours. Give them your verdict. They will listen." Violetta locked in, accepting the burden. She was a true Valeria, after all. A mere killer wouldn't break her spirit. She had a legacy to uphold today. She declared her stance. Cutting aid to Dorian was a massive political mistake. When the vassals grumbled, she didn't blink. She was ready to play them. She explained slowly. As war heroes, Dorian's fate was now tied to their own. Those people weren't just enemies. They were future subjects of the Valeria name. Abandoning them now would only plant seeds of revenge against her family. The nobles scoffed, trusting only their swords and military might to keep control. But Violetta warned them, hate is a poison that eventually kills the conqueror. The room went silent. They were speechless at this child's profound political wisdom. Octavio beamed with pride while keeping a hand on his hilt for the intruder. Meanwhile, Adriel sprinted through the halls, a blur of desperation to reach her. "No one touches her," he snarled, clutching his necklace like a lifeline. With the Valeria family's overwhelming might, crushing a petty rebellion would be child's play. Hearing this, Violetta nodded instantly. You're right, she agreed. That makes total sense. Honestly, I'm also down with cutting off the relief funds, she added coolly. But the Valerias shouldn't be the ones making the first move in this game. How about we leak a rumor first? Say the Valerias are prepping to slash the aid, aimed straight at House Beltran. After all, they're one of the big four families now. They have serious clout. We just watched the fallout. It was a flawlessly low-risk play. Yet, the vassals were dying to know why target House Beltran specifically. Violetta didn't hold back. I don't trust Duke Beltran, she declared. Think about it. How can a family obsessed with mimicking others ever be truly loyal to them? If she were head of the house, she'd wipe out any future threats immediately. With that, she slammed down the red token to seal her ruthless stance. The boardroom fell deathly silent, just as she worried she'd messed up. The vassals erupted in praise, stunned by her genius and desperate for her to take over. Violetta was shocked. A simple scheme had totally won over the hardened veterans. It was a total win, fueled by the villainess instincts etched into her very soul. Whenever she was in a jam, she just needed the perfect scapegoat to slide away. Sure, it was a bit shady, but considering Duke Beltran was a total snake, this tiny bit of ruthlessness was nothing compared to his typical schemes. Suddenly, Lucia burst in, gasping out the latest intel on the assassin. The killer was dead. As Violetta reeled from the news, the boardroom window exploded. Shards of glass flew everywhere. Octavio reacted instantly, shielding Violetta in his arms. A familiar shadow loomed. The Duke stood there, radiating pure murder. Where is that brat? Seeing the room paralyzed with fear, the Duke realized he might have overdone it. Still, he glared at Octavio. Why exactly are your hands on my daughter? Octavio scrambled back, terrified. Violetta just sighed at the chaos her dad had caused. A massive headache coming on, she snapped. Why did you just vanish without a word? Do it again and I'm ghosting you! Hearing her scold him, the Duke's face softened. His lethal rage evaporated the second his eyes landed on her. The vassals were floored. Was this softy really the legendary Demon Duke? He didn't care about their stares. His world revolved entirely around his precious daughter. Violetta, I heard you made a new friend. When he mentioned Adriel, her eyes lit up. Yes, Daddy, Adriel is my very first bestie, she gushed with excitement. He's got blonde hair and black eyes. Honestly, he looks just like a porcelain doll. As Violetta fangirled over Adriel, a dark, jealous aura began radiating from the Duke. Oh? How interesting. Why don't we go pay this friend a little visit together? Violetta hopped down, thrilled. Let's go! He's in the 4th floor treatment room. I was actually waiting for you so I could make him my personal servant. The Duke's knuckles turned white. Octavio watched, knowing a total disaster was brewing. Realizing where they were headed, Octavio bolted after them to stop the carnage. My lord, you have urgent business. He finally managed to intercept the raging Duke. He detoured him to the assassin's body, explaining the bizarre timeline of the discovery. By the time the knights arrived, the killer was already cold. The Duke pulled back the sheet. He scrutinized the lethal punctures marking the assassin's pale skin. These wounds, they aren't deep at all, the Duke noted, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. Lacerations from a dagger, likely. Suddenly, the Duke spotted something chilling. The wound was unnaturally precise, as if a blade had sliced through paper. This was the work of an aura user. The situation just got lethal. Aura is a deadly art mastered only by the most elite swordsmen. It's a pure force, impossible to replicate through magic or mere imagination, no matter how vast one's mana or holy power might be. Crossing paths with an aura master is a death wish. However, every aura user is registered, meaning we can hunt them down one by one. We must track their movements, including every noble branch and distant relative, specifically near the site of the assassin's demise. Examining the body again, the Duke's face darkened. If an aura master had breached Valeria, Violetta, who was attending the council, had been walking on thin ice. Had that aura master targeted her instead of the assassin, he would have lost his precious daughter, just like his late wife. Guilt threatened to consume him. The mere thought made him crave death. He loathed his past self. Why obsess over the dead for so long? While neglecting the child right before him, he was a pathetic father. Resolved, he finally took action and reached out to Octavio directly to arrange Mom's funeral. Meanwhile, a maid arrived with a dinner tray. Searching for Adriel, she found only an empty room and an open window. Panic set in as she reported his escape, but she didn't know that Adriel was currently collapsing in a pool of his own blood. Agony surged through his mind, dragging him into a sudden, dark unconsciousness. In his dreams, he was 5 again. It was that fateful day. His first injury during training. Clutching his bloody arm, he sought his master. Master, it hurts so much, please help. But his master was cold. Why do you dare approach me like that? Go fix yourself up immediately. Don't you dare come near me while filthy. Blood dripped from Adriel's hand. shattering his heart alongside it. Later, bandaged and broken, Adriel returned. His master patted his head with approval, yet Adriel felt only emptiness. He never cried out in pain again. Tears changed absolutely nothing. He learned that lesson at 5. Now, Adriel was barely clinging to life. He woke in his room, a searing heat radiating from his right arm. Violetta was right there, her voice trembling with urgent questions. "How did this happen? Were you the one who stopped the assassin? I was terrified when they found you unconscious in the bushes. Why were you so reckless?" Seeing her distress, guilt gnawed at him. Unable to speak the truth, he lied about stumbling upon the killer. "By pure chance," Violetta snapped. "You should have come to me first." "You should have asked for my help," Adriel thought back to his master. In the same situation, his master would have shoved him away. But Violetta actually cared. A strange warmth blossomed in his chest. "I'm okay, milady. The pain is gone now." But his response only made Violetta sob harder. "You always say you're fine. Why do you keep lying? Just like the steak, you hide everything. You act like you don't care, but you're still keeping secrets. It's honestly so draining. I'm asking one last time. Are you hurting or not? Give me the real truth." Adriel locked eyes with the girl weeping for him and finally made his choice. He gripped his arm, tears welling up as he confessed, "It actually hurts a lot. My arm and shoulder are killing me." Hearing this, Violetta instantly hugged him tight. "It's okay now, Adriel. Just speak up next time." Once they both calmed down, she handed him the healing elixir, which he accepted in total silence. Then he said with pure gravity, "I'll say it again. I really like you." Violetta froze, her face flushing crimson. "You mean, you like me as a friend, right?" Seeing Adriel obey so submissively, she finally exhaled a massive sigh of relief. Adriel suddenly looked thoughtful and asked if her previous words still held weight. About taking responsibility for him, that is. When she said, "Of course," Adriel shyly asked if he could stay by her side forever. Violetta's instant yes hyped him up so much, he chugged the entire elixir at once. Suddenly, Violetta remembered that trash assassin, but when Adriel heard the news that the killer was linked to the Dorian kingdom, his heart nearly stopped. He quickly asked if she'd despise him if he were from that place. Violetta was stunned, then gave him a reassuring pat on the shoulder while smiling. "If they're as kind as you, Adriel, I could never hate them." After that, Violetta got ready to leave, but Adriel reminded her not to ghost their promise. She huffed, offended. Did she look like a flake? But everything had changed now. She'd fixed the Dorian aid funds and even kept the Empress away from her dad. Now, Prince Pedro has no reason to target the Valerias. Yet, Adriel's words lingered. He wasn't the joking type. Why mention Dorian? Does he have a dark secret? Come to think of it, Adriel looks identical to Prince Pedro from the Dorian kingdom. The man who personally killed her in her past life. Only the eyes differed. Those casual words left Violetta spiraling about his real identity. She was totally lost in thought until the vassals called her back to reality. Her intense expression made them whisper that she's a carbon copy of the Duke. With those two leading, they felt the Valeria family was absolutely invincible. Hearing the praise, Violetta stole a quick, proud glance at her father. The Duke's lips curled into a smug smirk. He looked completely satisfied. His presence made her feel safe, so she stopped overthinking the Adriel situation. She decided to focus on wrapping up this periodic meeting perfectly instead. Right then, the Duke suddenly brought up the suggestion she had made earlier. He remembered the proposal Violetta had put forward during the session. She immediately spoke up, requesting to delay the plan to cut Dorian's aid. After stating her case, she didn't forget to look at her dad for approval. The Duke, charmed by her adorable face, ruffled her hair with immense pride. "You're brilliant, sweetie. You're already thinking about the family's long-term future." Then he shot a freezing glare at the vassals. Anyone got a problem with that? The vassals quickly agreed, since the final outcome was basically the same. They decided to wait for other families to make the first move, and then follow their lead. With that major issue finally settled, the Duke moved on to his next proposal. He swore never to skip another important council meeting again. His top priority? Restoring the duchy to its former glory within 5 years. He expected his vassals to fall in line and cooperate fully from now on. Silence fell. Violet was more shocked than anyone else in the room. Having lived through her past life, she knew how deep Dad's obsession ran. Even after the Saintess Empress passed, he had desperately searched for Pedro. He'd begged for death before, but now he was finally accepting Mom was gone. It worried her, but his eyes glowed with a new, fierce resolve. He was determined to protect her. He was changing everything just for Violet. She should be happy, yet a heavy weight pressed against her chest. This version of Dad would surely lead them toward a happy ending. But the pain of losing Mom remained. Suddenly, the heavens began to weep. The Duke rushed over, shielding her from the downpour with his own cloak. Without a second thought, he wrapped the warm fabric tightly around her. Seeing him brave the storm just for her made Violet's heart swell. Across 2 lifetimes, this was her first taste of fatherly love. There she was, the mother she missed. In the past, there was no funeral. She hadn't seen Mom since the Viscount's house. Dad had been shielding her too. Dad finally owned his mistake. "I'm sorry, sweetie. I took too long. I tried everything to save her." But she was already gone. He choked up. Heart aching, Violet took his hand. "Dad, you used to kiss Mom's forehead. You did it every night, and she'd tease you for hating broccoli." Right on cue, the Duke's face twisted in pure disgust at the mention. They truly were related. To change the subject, she asked how they met. Turns out, it was love at first sight after Mom heroically saved him. They reminisced until midnight. Eventually, Violet's eyes grew too heavy to stay open. Before drifting off, she told Dad not to rush the burial just yet. "Wait until you can smile at her one last time before saying goodbye." With those final words, she leaned against the Duke and fell fast asleep. Her words struck a chord. He gently pulled Violet into a warm embrace. He was so grateful his wife left him such a precious, kind-hearted angel. Next morning, they shocked the chef by ordering a meal of pure broccoli. To top it off, they requested Octavio serve them some red tea. This sudden shift in taste left the staff completely baffled and confused. They just wanted to honor Mom. She loved watching them eat their greens. Red tea was her favorite too. For years, the Duke had been stuck. He'd only cared about saving her. Now, he'd wait to say a proper goodbye. Clearly, both had overestimated their actual tolerance for those bitter greens. When Octavio returned, he found them both looking half dead at the table. The mighty Valeria house was almost defeated by a vegetable. Time for the bird. It had been ages. She prepped a fancy strawberry cake and a note. She scribbled, "I'm sorry," 100 times. The bird hadn't visited for months. He used to visit bi-weekly. Now, Violet was starting to feel really anxious. She promised to be good if he returned, but an hour passed. Nothing. She headed to bed, but a familiar sound stopped her. Her friend was dying. Terror gripped her as she snatched him up, eyes scanning every inch for wounds. Turns out, he didn't forget his sweet tooth. After devouring an entire cake, he was fully healed. Violetta was totally shook, but didn't forget to drop a sincere apology. Thankfully, the little guy was over it. Seeing him chill, Violetta pressed him about where he'd been ghosting her. She never expected the real reason behind his sudden disappearance. Another regressor had been blocking his path the whole time. She brushed off the news, but the realization that he'd left her hanging made her blood boil. To make it up to her, the bird offered to spill the tea on 3 big questions. She secured the intel. Only 2 regressors existed here, and the other, a total psycho noble. The bird had suffered in his hands. The description, a blonde man. Upon hearing this, a face flashed in her mind. Prince Pedro of Dorian, her literal killer from her past life. But the Pedro she knew wouldn't hurt an animal. While she spiraled in thought, the bird turned dead serious. "Whatever happens in this life, I have to be clear. One man's happy ending is another's tragedy." Violetta thought back to her 99 failed lives. She was always the villainess's doomed daughter. This time, she finally flipped the script. She'd guard her happiness with her life. Suddenly, the bird began to shiver violently. She scrambled for a cloth to cover him. Touched by her kindness, he offered a bonus answer. She asked how to reply to the deity's letter, a request he'd cold-shouldered before. Just as he was about to spill, he collapsed. Violetta's heart nearly stopped. She summoned a doctor immediately. Finally, the little guy's fever broke, and he stabilized. He drifted into a deep sleep. The next morning, Violetta was still on edge. She kept bugging her dad to wrap up work so they could visit him, just as the Duke prepared to leave. Octavio stepped in. "Your Grace, don't you dare walk out now. You own this place, but I've been carrying your load for 5 whole years. If you bail now, I'm out too. Who knows what'll happen to House Valeria then? For the young lady's sake, this family needs to grow even stronger." Hit with a massive wave of guilt, the Duke turned to Violetta with a sigh. He asked her to wait. Watching her father lock in like that warmed her heart. She never imagined she'd see her dad being so professional. Suddenly, a servant hauled in a mountain of mail. Violetta stared, totally stunned. Octavio smirked. "All of these are invites for the upcoming grand banquet." This was a huge deal, Violetta's first time at the annual gala. It was back after a 5-year hiatus. Violetta recalled the Duke's dark past, and how she'd spent her entire previous life locked away in the annex. Across 2 lifetimes, this was her first real party. The hype was real. Seeing her glow, the Duke ordered Octavio to go all out on the preparations. Nothing but the absolute best for House Valeria. Meanwhile, the Empress, isolated in the archipelago, was fuming that the Duke hadn't visited. Her maid reported he'd swung by but dipped early for business. Suspicious, the Empress decided to crash the Valeria banquet to dig for dirt. The morning of the grand event arrived in the blink of an eye. Lucia decked Violetta out in a stunning gown. Seeing her dad looking dapper, Violetta dove straight into his arms with pure joy. Octavio arrived to join the celebration. Despite the 5-year gap, the guest list was insane. Violetta felt a wave of anxiety. Was it really okay to rush a celebration this big? Even with the murder case still under a cloud of mystery, Octavio's reassurance managed to settle her racing heart. As it turned out, the Duke had cranked security up to the absolute max for this gala. Typical overprotective dad. He'd planned for every possible threat, allowing her to finally relax and enjoy the party. And so, they made their grand debut before the high society crowd. The nobles, seeing Violetta for the first time, whispered about how much she resembled her father. Violetta herself was vibing with the sheer opulence of the event. That's when Viscount Candace approached to pay his respects. Recalling his crucial backup during their last meeting, Violetta decided she needed to give him a proper thank you gift. Her eyes landed on a nearby basket overflowing with sweets, and without missing a beat, she grabbed a massive handful of candy and stuffed them into the Viscount's hands as a gratitude token. The gesture was so wholesome it literally brought tears to the man's eyes. Seeing the tactic work like a charm, Violetta snatched up the whole basket and began distributing treats like a sugary ninja, earning awes and praises from everyone. But just as she scouted her next target, the atmosphere shifted. Murmurs rippled through the hall. The Empress had arrived. Meanwhile, hidden away in a quiet corner, Adriel pulled out the rose pendant he'd been hiding and crushed it with brutal force. He was banking on using these shattered fragments to accidentally leak his true identity to Violetta later on. Suddenly, a commotion erupted outside his door. The moment he heard from a maid that the Empress was gracing the banquet, he sprinted toward the hall, panicked. If he was a second late, Violetta was toast. The Empress was his former master and a total nightmare. Violetta caught sight of her, right in the middle of the family's seasonal gala, and the shock made her drop the candy basket. Sweets scattering everywhere. She clutched her head as her world began to spin. She knew this meeting was inevitable, but this was way too soon. If Dad faced the Empress now, the bloody tragedy of her past life would repeat. Violetta tried to pull her father away, but in her frantic rush, she tripped over her own feet. Instantly, she became the awkward center of attention. The Duke rushed to catch her, but before she could stop him, the Empress's voice chilled the air behind them. "My goodness! Are you hurt, child?" As Violetta hesitated, her father swept her up into a protective embrace. "I'll handle my own daughter," he snapped. Their gazes locked in a silent, high-stakes war. Violetta felt completely trapped. The fated encounter had happened, yet the Duke seemed more focused on her potential injuries than the Empress. He gave a curt nod and prepared to carry her out. But then, the Empress casually brought up the Duke's secret mission to the archipelago. He froze. Violetta, seeing the situation spiral, immediately blurted out a desperate lie. "Dad, wait! I think I saw Octavio looking for you. He said it was super urgent. You should go now." Seeing his precious daughter's pleading face, the Duke finally ignored the Empress's bait. The Empress watched them leave, her expression turning dark. Having successfully dragged Dad away, Violetta felt a wave of guilt. She just hoped Octavio could handle the fake news. Suddenly, a pair of hands clamped firmly over her mouth. Before she could even struggle, a familiar voice whispered in her ear, "Don't move, it's me." It was Adriel. Violetta immediately snapped at him. "Adriel, what the heck? You almost gave me a heart attack." Seeing her radiating such vibrant energy, Adriel let out a heavy sigh of relief. "Thank heaven you're all right. Where is the Duke hiding?" Their sharp exchange left Violet completely blindsided and drowning in confusion. Suddenly, the Empress materialized once more, sending a paralyzing chill straight through Adriel's entire body. Though his bizarre reaction raised major red flags, Violet focused on dismissing the Empress before digging for answers. She dropped into a swift, formal bow as the Empress claimed she was merely wandering through by chance. Yet, Adriel caught her eye. He lacked the typical, polished aura of a high-ranking noble heir. Intrigued by the mysterious stranger, she pressed further, but Violet instantly stepped up as his shield. "He was injured due to my family's negligence, and is currently recuperating under our personal care." The Empress hummed thoughtfully before dropping a bombshell. "In that case, why not just hand him over? My divine powers can mend his wounds." Hearing this, Violet's knuckles turned white as her fists tightened. Trading people like property was common among elites, but the Empress's bluntness was absolutely unhinged. Without a second thought, she shot down the proposal. "My deepest apologies, Your Majesty, but no. Adriel is my friend, and I won't surrender him to anyone." Her fierce loyalty deeply moved his soul. The Empress's gaze turned ice-cold for a fleeting second before she smoothly shifted into a fake apology. "Goodness, I've been quite disrespectful. I've wasted your precious time, and for that, I am truly sorry. I shall take my leave now, Duchess. I truly look forward to our next inevitable encounter." She vanished without a backward glance. Once, she was a saintly figure who bled compassion for every soul. She lived to serve her people, thriving on the adoration that flooded her heart with pure joy. That was until the Duke arrived, demanding she perform the impossible, resurrecting his late wife. Such a taboo act defied every divine law, and it was a power she simply did not possess. Her refusal led to a gruesome end by the Duke's hand, but heaven granted her a second chance. This time, she dropped 5,000 gold coins to secure Adriel before anyone else could reach him. He was the weapon destined to slay the Duke. Now her pawn, she planted him within the enemy's lair. This time Valeria was hell-bent on making sure the Duke paid for his sins in blood. But things aren't exactly what they seem. She sensed her pawn was going rogue for the enemy's daughter. Paranoia gripped the Empress. Was Violetta a reincarnator too? Meanwhile, Violetta tracked down Adriel under the midnight moon. Her eyes searched his. Adriel, what's wrong? You've been acting sus since the Empress appeared. Adriel choked back the truth, claiming he was fine. Violetta gently cupped his face with both hands. Chin up, Adriel. I'll protect you, no matter what dark secrets you're hiding. He pulled away softly. No, I'm the one who should protect you. Violetta stood there, totally confused. Suddenly, Adriel handed her a mysterious fragment. He wanted her to solve its hidden meaning. It was their secret game piece. He warned her to hide it where no one could find it. Back in her room, Violetta stared at the fragment, trying to decode the puzzle. Nothing clicked. She put it aside, focusing on her next move, asking her dad to let Adriel stay. But the Duke shut her down instantly. His answer was a cold, hard no. Violetta snapped. Hands on her hips, she went full main character energy on her father. I'm the Valeria bloodline heiress, Dad. I have the right to choose my own servant. The Duke was stunned. If her mother were alive, she'd be beaming with pride right now. Reluctantly, he folded. The second he agreed, Violetta tackled him with a massive hug. You're the best, Dad! She dashed off to share the victory with Adriel. Great news, Adriel! You're officially ours now! She was buzzing with excitement to tell everyone. Adriel tried to stop her, but a searing pain shot through his right arm. The Duke caught the flinch. Adriel, how did you get that injury? Adriel lied through his teeth, blaming a random run-in with a shady assassin. The Duke wasn't buying it. A kid like him escaping a pro killer? Something didn't add up. Suspicion clouded the Duke's eyes as he watched the boy. Suddenly, he sensed a foul aura on Adriel's chest. He cast a binding spell instantly. He ripped away the hidden communication necklace Adriel was wearing. The Duke's face went cold. He crushed the artifact with raw magic. You have 1 week to vanish, he threatened. Only his love for Violetta stopped him from ending Adriel right there. Adriel was paralyzed with fear. He promised her forever, but now he couldn't even protect himself. He felt totally powerless. Maybe leaving was the play. He'd return when he was strong enough to keep his promise. Miles away, the Empress felt the necklace shatter. The connection went dead instantly. Realizing the Duke was onto them, she pivoted her scheme. It was time for Plan B. She activated another stone to contact Adriel's mother. The Empress was playing dirty. She ordered her to kidnap both Adriel and Violetta. The stakes were getting lethal. The price? 5,000 gold. Adriel's mother didn't hesitate, she needed the bag. The Dorian kingdom was broke, and their grudge against the Valerias was personal. The Empress was the ultimate puppet master. If the mission failed, she'd have 0 blood on her hands. The perfect fall guy. The next morning, Violetta was hyped for Adriel's first day. She couldn't wait to see him officially join the Valeria family ranks. He looked drippy in the uniform. Violetta beamed, grabbing his hand. It looks perfect on you. Congrats on the new job, but where are you heading? Adriel mentioned cleaning the annex. Violetta insisted on tagging along. Adriel worried about the Duke, but Violetta knew he was a softie. Hand in hand, they strolled toward the annex, ignoring the heavy stares of the knights. The path felt long as the guards watched their every move with intense focus. Adriel started questioning the security. That last assassin attack was way too close for comfort. Violetta just laughed it off, telling him not to stress the small stuff. The Valeria Knights are on another level compared to you, she teased. Adriel just gave a sad smile. Is this for real? By the way, I've got something for you. Violet accepted the box. Inside lay another fragment, an exact twin to yesterday's. Her heart instantly sank. Why the repetition? Sensing her disappointment, Adriel's expression turned remarkably cold and serious. I'm giving you these so you'll finally grasp their significance. Adriel's gravity left Violet stunned. She couldn't fathom the meaning of a tiny scrap. Adriel insisted she examine it closely. As his weird behavior confused her, Octavio suddenly intercepted them. Hey, little lady! The Duke ordered no physical contact. She tried to hush Octavio, but the Duke arrived. He loomed behind them, looking absolutely grim. This was nowhere near his actual office. To keep Adriel away, the Duke was doing the most, especially regarding that hand-holding. He literally wanted to chop Adriel's hand off. Violet was totally over her father's obsession. She pushed her father back. Why are you always trying to separate us? I already told you I like him. Stop being such a mean dad. Violet stormed off, dragging Adriel along. The Duke stood alone, convinced this was for her. He couldn't let a dangerous slave near her, but Adriel silently moved his lips. He whispered a secret vow to the Duke. He'd definitely fulfill the 1-week pact. Despite the boy's manners, the Duke still hated him. His daughter's rebellion stung deeply. Anxious for her safety, he immediately ordered Octavio to dig up Adriel's hidden past. Octavio scoured the entire estate, but Adriel's slave records were nowhere to be found. This left only 2 possibilities. Either a record simply never existed in the first place, Or, someone had snatched his file. Deep in thought, the Duke inquired about the Viscountess. Learning she was in a coastal nation for an easy escape, he decided to investigate personally. As he prepared to leave, he remembered Violet's plea to never vanish without a word. He instructed Octavio to tell her he was merely attending a banquet and would return. Meanwhile, Violet was busy tending to her little bird while it slept deeply. Her gaze drifted to Adriel's 2 shards. The pattern vaguely resembled some kind of flower. It looked like a petal or a vortex. It felt nostalgic, yet she couldn't place it. Just as she considered asking Adriel for a hint, his voice echoed in her ears. She scanned the empty room until a familiar silhouette appeared on the window ledge. He sat on the sill, smiling. "I'm here because I missed you." It was Adriel. "Get down this instant! What if someone catches you?" Violet whispered in a total panic. Adriel didn't budge. "I won't do it again, but I have something to tell you. I'm no longer a servant." Violet's anxiety spiked. "Did my father threaten you into quitting?" Hearing her fear, Adriel quickly clarified that wasn't the case at all. "I finally found my real family. Since they're far away, I'm leaving today." Violet's heart shattered instantly. She thought they'd be together forever, yet she forced a smile. She asked him to bring his family to visit. Then, she invited him to eat. The moment she turned her back, the windowsill was empty. Adriel had vanished. He had just agreed to a meal. Why did he disappear so abruptly? She didn't even get to say a proper goodbye. Lucia entered to find her sobbing. She felt so wronged. Seeing Lucia, the dam broke. She was truly alone again. As a villainess's daughter, she felt she didn't deserve to have any friends. Everyone would eventually abandon her, just like in her past life. Violet was inconsolable. She felt that no matter how hard she tried, her destiny always ended in isolation. The tears wouldn't stop as she replayed Adriel's sudden, cold departure in her head. Ultimately, she believed everyone would discard her, leaving her utterly broken and alone. Lucia pulled her into a warm embrace, whispering, "Your Grace, you aren't fighting this alone. Lord Octavio, the knights, and the Duke who loves you are all here. No matter what comes, I'll stay right by your side. I promise to drag that bratty boy back myself one day, so stop blaming yourself. If you keep crying, your eyes will be ruined." Hearing those words, Violetta's grief finally began to fade. As she regained her spark, Lucia felt a wave of relief and immediately suggested they go grab some sweets together. But the split second Lucia turned away, an eerie magic circle erupted beneath Violetta's feet. Before anyone could react, Violetta vanished into thin air. Moments later, a familiar voice jolted her awake. Opening her eyes, she gasped. It was Adriel, the boy who had disappeared without a trace. Adriel let out a shaky sigh of relief. "Thank heavens! You're finally awake. I was so worried." Realizing she was somehow back in the courtyard, Violetta's confusion turned to fury as she snapped. "Where did you go? Why did you vanish? And why am I here?" Adriel quickly covered her mouth. "Forgive me, Your Grace. I'll explain everything later, but right now we have to." Before he could finish, a terrifying roar echoed through the air. "Where are you hiding? Show yourself before I break you." Completely lost, Violetta stared at the aggressive man. "Who is that?" Adriel stuttered in fear. "He's a kidnapper hunting us down. If he finds us, we're finished." "You have to get out of here right now," Adriel grunted, clutching his bleeding stomach in pain. She noticed his wound immediately, but he insisted he was fine. He promised to distract the man to buy her time. Fortunately, Duke Valeria's estate was close. If she just ran, the knights would find her. Yet, Violetta refused to abandon him. She couldn't leave Adriel behind, but as they hesitated, the kidnapper loomed over them like a shadow. "I'm sick of this! You think you can escape like little rats?" He kicked Adriel to the dirt. "I went through hell to snatch the Duchess, and you try to ruin it?" Violetta desperately grabbed his leg. "Stop it! Don't you dare hurt him!" Enraged, the man seized her throat. "How many shields does your house have? Do you know how hard it was to trigger that magic circle undetected?" As she struggled for air, his laugh turned mocking. How pathetic! The legitimate daughter of the legendary Valeria family doesn't even possess a drop of magic. Suddenly, a noise distracted him, and he realized the knights had tracked the magic circle. Adriel forced himself up, trembling. The kidnapper instantly cast a teleportation spell, threatening to crush Violetta's neck, unless Adriel obeyed him. Seeing her suffering, Adriel's fear vanished instantly. Ignoring his own agony, he lunged at the man to break his grip. As the kidnapper squeezed harder, Violetta's vision blurred. Was this the end? She had only just fixed things with her father. There were so many things she wanted to do. She wanted to live. Suddenly, Adriel drew a dagger and plunged it into the man's gut. "I told you to let her go." With Adriel's furious scream, the man finally released her. Violetta watched, breathless, as Adriel's eyes glowed with a haunting golden hue. "I'm sorry," he whispered. In a flash of light, both Adriel and the kidnapper vanished. Violetta collapsed, gasping for fresh air on the cold ground. Haunted by those familiar golden eyes, the truth hit her like a lightning bolt. Adriel was actually Pedro. That timid, kind boy was the very monster who had slaughtered her entire family in her past life. Lost in despair over the future, she suddenly heard two voices approaching. Is this the place? Yeah, the detection led us here, but there's only this girl. Why is she just sitting on the ground? Who knows? Let's go ask her. Violetta looked up at Tony, and the two children standing there, pink hair and blue eyes. Her twin brothers had finally returned.